Hey, we're cooking with gas here. On the Jewcast.
Okay, careful using a phrase like that.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries, of a sham.
Tradition!
Oh, shut up, Carl! Shut your goddamn Jew mouth! You people are why there's war in the Middle East!
Gekakkenaf van Jan.
Nebbig.
Ver poepoepoe.
Vermischt.
Verkakt.
Vertutst.
Verstonken.
Fartig.
Exactly.
You're what Grammy Hall would call a real Jew.
Let's get into it. It is American Jew Podcast coming at ya.
Whoa! Episode 66, straight from the world's coming to an end.
Reporting live from the apocalypse. We're stuck inside and we don't even know when the Jewish holidays are sometimes. We missed one.
We've lost all track, and last weekend was Shavuos.
Oy, what a bad Jew I am. I didn't even realize.
You are such a horrible Jew.
My parents don't even listen to the podcast and gave me a hard time for not talking about it.
I mean, I don't know what I'm more upset about. I think it's your parents not listening to the podcast.
That is the thing to be upset about, for sure.
What the hell?
Well, did you celebrate Shavuot this year?
No, I didn't celebrate it. I didn't even. I forgot about it until this week. That it was Shavuos it was, whatever. I guess it's not like such a big holiday.
It's like one of the harvest holidays.
It's one of the harvest holidays along with Sukkot and Passover, and I guess it's like the wheat one. It's also a day where we're celebrating that we received the Torah, the Ten Commandments at Mount Sinai.
Right.
And they celebrate it in different ways. One thing is people stay up all night and they study the Torah.
And you're supposed to eat dairy.
Yeah, it's not good for you, Jordon. You lactose intolerant.
I know. Maybe that's why it's a good thing I didn't celebrate it. Maybe it's good that I passed over that one this year.
Maybe, but yeah, you're supposed to eat dairy because it has a little bit to do with the Torah, is like milk, and that when the first Shavuos, they were just given the laws of kashrus, so they realized they couldn't eat the meat, so they only had dairy.
Well,
I guess you're supposed to decorate your place like greenery. They read from the Book of Ruth, which I think is interesting because the Book of Ruth is about a woman who wasn't Jewish, and then she decided to become Jewish and commit herself to Judaism. And, I know we've talked a lot about it on the podcast of, like, what does it mean to be Jewish? Like, what do you have to be Jewish? And I think this is a good example of, if you want to be Jewish, you're Jewish. I feel like that is the future of Judaism, that if you want to be it, then you could be it. It doesn't matter if your mom's Jewish. It doesn't matter if you converted. It doesn't matter if you've been to Israel. All that matters is that you have a love for Judaism.
And dairy.
It's always good to love some blintzes.
Yeah, get some blintzes, get some kugel.
Cheesecake.
I love me some good noodle kugel.
You like the noodle kugel?
Oh, yeah. My aunt's recipe is the best one, and my mom makes it with the crumble on top.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
it's good to have the crumble.
Got to have that crumble. It's basically dessert for breakfast.
Crumble.
It's one of my favorite dishes.
Well, that's cool. Well, it would have been good to celebrate by eating some kugel, but maybe next year. Maybe next year. Yeah. Maybe next year we'll be able to go out and people can study all night together and not via Zoom.
Well, speaking of other people that you don't necessarily know if they're Jewish or not, there's a black Jew running for Congress.
There is. There is a black Jewish man that wants to be a congressman in Georgia. John Eves is his name. And yeah, that'd be great because, there are Jews in Congress, there are African Americans in Congress, but there are no Jewish black people in Congress. So it would be great to have that kind of voice, especially in a time right now where people are so apart and there's so much going on. I think that would be really important.
For sure. I mean, I think we've talked about this a lot, about how having Jews in elected positions is important because there doesn't seem to be enough Jewish voices at those tables,
No, I mean, for sure, and vice versa. Someone like George could bring blacks and Jews more together because we have actually a lot in common.
Yeah, so if you live in Georgia, he's on the ballot.
Yeah, I thought something was interesting, when I was reading up about him. He goes to temple, and he was saying that, one thing he noticed is when it comes to Judaism, people, refer to Jews of color. But other religions, they don't go Christians of color or Catholics of color, and that's something that he hopes he could help change, that it's just like, hey, you're just a member of the congregation. It doesn't matter what color you are.
Right.
I agree with that. I hope, especially with all the protests and everything that's going on right now, moving forward, we cannot be so divided by just the color of our skin. The things that we have in common.
You don't refer to an albino Jewish person as a Jew of no color.
No, I mean, I haven't, or have I met a lot of Jewish albinos?
Not yet. I haven't met any, but...
Oh, I like it how you're putting it out there, but I want to meet somebody.
I'm open to it.
I just want to talk about this thing because I think it's interesting that they found cannabis resin at an old Jewish temple in Israel outside of Jerusalem, and they are saying that this was part of the rituals that they use this. They used to get high and pray, and they found it. They think it was hashish. They think it was brought in from China or Russia, and it was a synagogue that was very similar to the Beis Hamikdash, the temple in Jerusalem. So they think they did the same things in Jerusalem because it was a very similar layout to that temple, to the one to Jerusalem. In Jerusalem, they can't do a lot of archaeological digs because, of where it is, but they could do it at this temple, this location.
And it wasn't just marijuana.
It's in Tel Arad, and it's a temple that's 2,700 years old.
It said it wasn't just cannabis residue. That there was all. They say that it was like part of a religious ritual. They would burn it on top of animal dung.
Yes, apparently that gets you even higher.
That's where the phrase "this is good shit" came from.
So yeah, they found frankincense, which is written a lot about in the Bible, on one of the altars, and they found this resin on another, and it definitely contained THC. So hey, I mean, that's, get high and do some praying.
I tell you right now, I feel like you need to have some frankincense just for the fun of it when you get high.
Definitely.
Also some...
just to make, cover up the smell of the weed, you have to light up some frankincense.
Exactly.
So, next time you go to temple, light up a little joint. It's good to see, cannabis is helpful. Wow, it was used all that time ago in the temples for ways to, communicate with God.
Always good to have some good news in there.
Is that good news? It's good news that they had weed back in the temple days?
I think so.
Okay.
It, helps me feel more Jewish on a daily basis.
Yeah, when you're smoking, you're not such a pothead. You're just more practicing your religion.
Exactly. Practice makes perfect.
Well, we do have these protests going on.
Yes, there is also bad news.
Okay, first of all, the real bad news is, the systematic racism that has been going on in America since we first brought over, African slaves, the treatment of the African American community by the police, what's happened to way too many black people. Certainly what happened to George Floyd is horrible and disgusting. That is the real problem. That is the real issue.
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean that there aren't other issues and problems that have now popped up because of this that I feel should be addressed too. I noticed a lot of social media, there's a lot of things just like, you're not paying attention to the real issue, the real problem. What really is upsetting is you don't really care about black people. You care more about the protests, or why are we saying the protests need to stop? It's a shame that what happened to George Floyd. We should be saying what happens to black people like George Floyd needs to stop, and the protests are a shame. But I don't understand why it has to be one or the other. What happened to George Floyd, what happened to Eric Gardner, what happened to way too many African Americans is horrible, it's sickening, it's wrong. But the riots aren't right either. And I think you could comment on being dissatisfied with the riots, especially because I feel they take away from the real message and they make people more racist. They make cops have itchier trigger fingers. And I think that's horrible.
It is definitely a dragon eating its own tail on a lot of ends of this. It's hard. I find that the response to protesting about police brutality has increased police brutality, it seems.
Absolutely, and it sucks that people are referring to it as riots right now instead of protests, which it really is, and other people are exploiting what is happening right now that aren't even African Americans.
Yeah, there's a huge...
And it's getting lumped in, and people are thinking that it's, all the protesters, and I've seen so many videos of protesters, stopping people from looting and stopping people from causing damage, and I'm like, I love those people. Those people are amazing, but there are people, whether, they're from militia groups or they're, white racists, trying to make African Americans look bad, or there are just some people that are bad eggs that are taking advantage of the situation. But it's getting lost with the message, and I think it's horrible. And I think it's like you said, and unfortunately, it's even shown some, backlash on the Jewish community. Where in Los Angeles, where they had some riots, there's a very Jewish community in Fairfax, and not only were a lot of the Jewish small businesses there, looted, but there was a lot of vandalism that was like "fuck Israel." Like anti-Semitic vandalism, people did stuff to synagogues. They vandalized a statue of a Hungarian Jew that helped a lot of Jews during the Holocaust.
It's very disheartening to see what's happening. And on top of it, there's so much misinformation. There are all these right-wing groups that are instigating the violence, that really want to have another civil war. They want to have all this violence to go on. And they're instigating a lot of this stuff and blaming it on the protesters. And there are multiple cities where there are reports of just random stacks of bricks being left around to be able to throw at people by those groups, apparently. And the White House only denounced one of them, which turned out not to be a random pile of bricks, but a blockade that a synagogue in Los Angeles used to defend themselves.
Okay.
Like the one thing that the White House came out and said was like, be careful of this. This is, the Jews are going to be throwing rocks. No, that's the one thing that the White House came out and denounced as was wrong. They had to take it down because they were wrong. The synagogue was like, no, this is not random piles of bricks. This is what we are using to defend our front door from a car smashing into it.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's crazy. Oh, and I want to correct myself what I said before. The statue, he wasn't Jewish. He was a Swedish diplomat, but he saved thousands of Hungarian Jews. His name is Raoul Wallenberg. It's crazy what's happening. There's a lot wrong. Just like what's happening in LA. I don't think Black Lives Matter. I don't think people that are protesting, what is white supremacy and the way African Americans are treated in this country are all anti-Semitic. But people use the protests as cover to spread anti-Semitism.
Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and at the core issue of it all, I think it's so weird to see people demanding equal rights, trampling on other people's rights. On both, on all sides, it's troubling that Trump would even go out of his way to say there are good people on both sides of a white supremacist rally. When that happened in Charleston, yeah. I think it's disingenuous to not acknowledge that there are bad people on both sides of this issue as well. Like there are.
Well, first of all, white supremacists are bad. Okay.
Right. No. But
they're bad.
What I'm saying
when it comes to the protests.
What I'm saying is from the two sides here. There are bad cops. And there are cops that think they're good, but that are complicit because they don't turn on other cops. They don't turn in the bad cops. But there are people on the protester side that also may not have the best message either. The fact that they're letting themselves be co-opted by white supremacist groups or other things. It just muddies the water. It's so complicated. And
absolutely, and you know what, Jordon? There are good cops too. There are good cops,
right?
Too.
Well, that's the thing. Shooting cops and killing cops is not the answer either. It really is upsetting to see people celebrating others killing cops. That is not
There's so
the
much
answer.
Upsetting in this. Like I said earlier, of course, the thing to be most upset about is the treatment of African Americans. But not only were we the victim of anti-Semitism during some of the riots, but of course something goes wrong, and what do people want to do? They blame the Jews, and there are people that are actually blaming George Floyd's death on Jews, and they're saying that they brought in Israelis to help the cops, to teach cops to deal with terrorism and stuff, and they taught them the force that they kind of used to kill George Floyd. Isn't that crazy?
It really is.
No matter what happens, anti-Semites find a reason to blame Jewish people.
I think, all of this stuff that's happening right now, it's such a hot button issue and people get triggered very easily. I find that this is a time to really listen to what people are saying. And there are too many people out there that are just talking at you and not with you. I'm hopeful that more intellectual discussions come out of this, and that more people that are on the fence about any of this take the time to really listen to the people that are airing their grievances, that the black community gets heard, that real change takes place. The fact that they have arrested all 4 of these officers in Minneapolis is a step, but it is not the end of this. I mean, there has to be a lot more social change enacted, and we have to be better at having conversations with each other about things that we may or may not disagree about. Just because you disagree doesn't mean that we have to fight.
No, absolutely. I feel like why this is dividing so many people. People are just, oh, why are you posting this? You should be posting that. Oh, you're posting a black square. That's not really doing anything. Oh, you care more about the riots than you do about, well, who cares about Target? Black people are dying. Like, what? No. Why are we dividing amongst ourselves more? Why are we fighting amongst ourselves? The problem is the police force. The problem is, society as a whole, and the way has to do with the way we treat people of color, not these little things that everyone now wants to pick at and get mad at each other. I mean, obviously we could do a whole episode just talking about this. There's a lot to talk about. Of course, we are both white people. We are both Jewish. We have, there's anti-Semitism at an all-time high. There was the Holocaust. I haven't, been in a Jewish protest for a while, but I marched with 6,000 Jews from Auschwitz, to Birkenau to commemorate 60 years since World War II. So, we do have a little bit of a perspective. We have, gone through some hate. So, I feel like dismissing people's opinions and thoughts just because they're white isn't the way to go either. We
need to fight against injustice in all forms. We talk a lot about fighting against anti-Semitism, but fighting against all injustice, I think, is really important. And with that in mind, when you want to fight against anti-Semitism, what better way than to learn some Krav Maga, which is exciting. We finally have a Krav Maga expert coming on the show today.
We're having a Krav Maga instructor. He's Jewish, and he's very active in the Jewish community, and he's been so supportive of the podcast since the beginning, and I'm very excited to have him on the show and to hear about his perspective. And we're very excited to have Steve Becerra on the show today.
Yay! Please contain your excitement. It's a lot to live up to.
Listen, we're all stuck inside. All I've been doing is containing my excitement.
That's true. I mean, it's so easy to entertain nowadays. I had a bird build a nest outside my window. I was watching it like the finale of Game of Thrones. I'm just starved for entertainment.
Well, Steve is a Krav Maga instructor and a Jewish educator.
Yes.
Yeah, Jonathan and I talk a lot on the show about how to fight against anti-Semitism, and sometimes, you need to get a little bit more physical.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. When I started ICMO, which is the American Israeli Krav Maga organization, me and my friend and mentor, Richard Seid, we started this place, and the idea was we wanted to have something that represented our culture positively. So if you go to a karate school, you do commands in Japanese, ich, ni, san, shi. You go to a taekwondo school, they do it in Korean, hana, tu, set, net. So that's fine. We have commands in Hebrew, we count in Hebrew, and even if the student is not Jewish, we thought just to add a little cultural flavor to it, we do a little Hebrew. Our uniform has Hebrew and English. There's an American flag and an Israeli flag on the wall. We wanted to have a little representation because we wanted to be known for something more than just either the classic BDS slant or something more than people equating us as a people as just nebbishy. Someone's accountant, we're not athletic,
Right. We're not all Woody Allen. Some of us can be The Rock.
Well, that's that's the old Jon Stewart joke. Jon Stewart used to say that Israel doesn't have your typical "let me do your taxes" Jews. It's will you hold my machine gun while I take a leak Jews.
That's exactly right. It's more on the lines of the Zohan. I want to teach people to kick and say, yes, that's the foot,
Yeah. Afterwards, have some fizzy bubbly.
Not to the point where it's like Sasha Cohen's character of the Krav Maga instructor that he does now on Showtime. Not as far as that, but yeah, right around there.
Do you have an equal mix of Jewish people, students, and non-Jewish students, or does it lean one way or the other?
You know what? It's a nice mix. I would say we're maybe 30, 40%, sometimes as much as 50% at some point in the year. So I guess it's also just the neighborhood. I'm in South Florida, and I'm in northern Broward County. I'm a stone's throw from Boca, and close enough where some people might come up from Miami. So, yeah, it's also the area.
I was wondering how you got into doing Krav Maga.
It's, self-defense has been a lifelong thing with me. I got it from my family. I got involved with training since I was 3 years old. I can't remember my first self-defense lesson. I do know that I trained by my mom. I trained with my dad. Dad always the patient mentor figure. Mom was always much more stern. I mean, if you thought Jewish mother issues were complex, imagine having a mom that outranked you and routinely kicked your ass.
She didn't use the broom handle.
I don't know.
She did some Israeli martial arts moves.
My mother has outranked me for most of my life, for sure, but I don't know if she would be able to kick my ass.
Well, for a while when you're smaller, for sure.
Yeah.
And ever so often, my mom does this thing. Now, she's in her 60s, and ever so often if we're hanging out having a meal, she'll still say to me, once upon a time I was pretty damn good. And I was like, yes, Mom, I know. You were a total warrior back in the day. I get it. So she'll let me know. She reminds me.
Is there one basic Krav Maga move that you could tell us that we could pick up just from talking about?
There's a really great episode when the Simpsons go to Israel. Actually, Sacha Baron Cohen's in that too. He plays the tour guide. And Bart gets into a fight with the guy's daughter. And Bart pulls a karate sense and goes, karate! And the girl goes, Krav Maga! She starts pounding him in the groin. And Bart says, hey, stop hitting me in the groin. And she says very matter-of-factly, no groin, no Krav Maga. So a lot of it is we're striking vital targets. We're trying. Look, I have people who come in from other systems, and they're amazed that we're able to gouge the eyes, tear off piercings from the face, strike the throat, fish hook the mouth, strike at the groin, that type of thing. And we're routinely bringing out weapons like knives, bats, shotguns, assault rifles, stuff like that. I have a very dear friend of mine who's a UFC fighter. Her name is Maria Agapova, and she's actually going to be fighting in Vegas on the 13th. Wow. So she comes in here with an MMA mentality, and she's damn good. I mean, this girl's a beast. She's an amazing fighter. I have no doubt she's gonna go all the way. But she'll come in and go like, wow, that's crazy. So I'm just grabbing the guy's nuts, and I was like, yeah. So I'm putting my thumb in his eyeball. I was like, yeah, basically.
Very aggressive.
Wow, these are good moves.
Yeah.
Some of them could also double as sex moves.
Depending on how rough you like it. But I will say that what we try to do is this. We're trying to bring self-defense to the people who need it. So if you're this gigantic 6'2" dude covered in tattoos, solid muscle, you're not on anybody's menu. You're not usually a target of someone. But if you're a woman between the ages of 13 and 33, if you are autistic, if you are smaller than most, if you are we try to make it so that people are learning common sense self-defense moves that are easy to learn, difficult to forget, everything focused on staying alive in the real world. There are no kata, there's no meditation, there's no pseudo-mystical concepts involved. Nothing is too complex or acrobatic. So we want to bring it to the masses. We often do classes for autistic individuals, people who are on the spectrum, because they have safety concerns just like everyone else, and actually have safety concerns that are inherent to being on the spectrum. It's different when you're not neurotypical. You're going to have some situations that come up that you're going to have difficulty dealing with.
Yeah.
We do free classes for women very often, women who are victims of sexual assault or domestic abuse. We routinely do classes for free for the LGBTQ community. We've done classes for trans women, for example. And this is coming from that mentality of bringing it to the masses. Pikuach nefesh. We want to bring that thing to the people who need it the most. I'm a cisgender heterosexual male. So my chances of getting murdered in America are about 1 in 19,000. But if you're a trans woman of color, your chances of getting murdered are 1 in 8. That's insane odds.
Wow, yeah.
So I make enough money, thank God, Baruch Hashem, I make enough money, I put a little food on the table by teaching regular lessons, and then I'm able to adopt these projects where I say, hey, look, I know your organization doesn't have much money, it's a good cause, please just come on over, take a few classes, it's good to know something, you never know. Heaven forbid something should happen.
I was going to ask about his work with Jewish education, whether it be in South America or throughout South Florida. What has driven you to be a Jewish educator?
You know what? It's the nerd. It's the nerd in me. I am an uber nerd. I actually Amongst the languages that I speak, I can say that I have 2 dialects of Elvish and Klingon. It's I'm a super nerd, and I think I've always approached my faith from an academic, sort of overly studious perspective. I love geeking out about anything related to my faith, and I've been a teacher before. When I was living abroad, I taught English and science at a British school, at an American school. So I love being in the classroom. So it made perfect sense for me to teach. I've taught Jewish history. I've done it in different languages. I've taught Introduction to Judaism. I've done classes for both Jews who want to learn more about their faith and history, but I've also done it for people who are seeking to convert. I'm passionate about it. I just love it.
How religious were you raised?
Hiloni, just secular. And I went to a Schechter school here in Miami before we left the States until about 5th grade. But it's one of these things where you're not a patriot when you're home. Like, you're an American, and you're like, whatever. And then you go traveling somewhere and you bump into a guy from Jersey while you're backpacking through Europe, like, dude, Jersey, that's American. That's amazing. And so when there's less of you, when you're surrounded by less Jews, I think that there's a moment where you like, you start getting more, you start bonding over people who might be, and, oh my God, yeah, me too. I remember my Haftorah portion. I remember having to learn the Aleph base and stuff like that. So I got really religious when I got back to the States, and there was a time where I was doing, I was a Shomer Shabbat, Shomer Kashrut, I was wearing tzitzis, I had a kippah all the time, and then it just sort of transitioned to what I am now, sort of reformadox. I tie tefillin every morning.
Reformadox sounds like a dinosaur.
Yes, the reformadox. It's one of those things. It's funny because that was what I did. I studied paleontology. If you can believe that. I'm Ross from Friends. I studied dinosaurs. I had a pet monkey, Jewish, and I had trouble getting the girl.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, you were on a break.
Yeah.
Exactly right. A few times. And in the end, actually, Ross got the girl. I didn't. So that's our difference.
Well,
but,
not yet. Not yet.
I wonder. Do you exclusively date Jewish women? Do you only date Jewish women?
No. I don't just date Jewish women. I just don't know if someone who's not Jewish could put up with me.
Why do you say that though? You think it's like the lifestyle or the traditions or
the kvetching?
Yeah.
Obnoxious, acerbic, overly sarcastic Jewish humor, and I think it's tough for people to get. I was at a Flogging Molly concert, and I just caught the eye of some really cute girl. We were making eyes at each other all night. I sent her over a drink. Then we couldn't hear each other over the music, over the din. At the end of the concert, I said, hey, I'm not local, but I'm by myself. Would you mind driving me back to my hotel? Yada, yada, yada. And as the night progressed, I thought, okay, this is happening. She was like, you're Jewish, right? I was like, yeah. She's like, no, but you're really Jewishy. And this is verbatim. That's what we're Jewishy. I go like, what do you mean? She's like, I hear you, there's like the oy vey, and there's just the way you talk is like really stereotypically Jewish. And I go, what do you mean? It's like, I just don't think I could do this. You mean, oh, I see. So I collected my stuff and I said good night and I left. So,
oh wow!
I was apparently too Jewish to have sex.
Of a scene in Permanent Midnight where the character picks up a German girl and they're having sex and the German's yelling, "I'm fucking a Jew! I'm fucking a Jew!" I actually posted a little video on social media yesterday, and I got a comment saying, "You're the most Jewish person I've ever seen."
Oh, I know I'm that person. I mean, my face should be circumcised. I'm really overtly, and it's in everything. I really wear it on my, first of all, I'm in uniform most of the time because I teach so many classes during the day, so I'm constantly wearing like urban camo pants and a T-shirt that has like people fighting on it. The backdrop is a Magen David, and it has English and Hebrew on it, so the logo's right there front and back. Shaved head, looking the part. Even if I'm at like a metal concert or listening to punk or oi or whatever, and my Magen David is going to just come out of my shirt. I always have it on my neck. So I'm everybody's token Jewish friend depending on the circumstance, depending on what circle I'm running with.
I wonder, you talked about being, a big nerd. And you talked a little bit about how the misconception that Jews are not tough, that we're a bit nebbishy. I wonder, was that you as a kid? Were you bullied a little bit? Were you did you have to go do this Krav Maga or get into self-defense in order to change that perception amongst people in your life?
Oh, I was bullied mercilessly, and I'll tell you, look, right now when I'm not teaching Krav Maga or teaching Judaism, I might earn some extra bucks teaching a language. So I speak a few. I mean, I've done Japanese, Portuguese or Spanish. Right? I speak really good Italian. And I studied archaeology, studied paleontology. So I embrace the nerd. I'd rather be the king of nerds. But when you graduated high school at 14, as I did, and when you moved around a lot, you absolutely got picked on. And I remember always being able to fight, so I didn't suffer any physical bullying. I mean, it happened, but I was able to defend myself. But it was the isolation, it was the ostracizing. I did part of 8th grade when I begged my parents to let us come back to America because I wanted to go to American high school. I was fascinated by the concept of tater tots and homecoming and all that stuff you watch in the Wonder Years. It was like a Norman Rockwell slice of Americana. And I wanted to do that. When I got here, I went to Terre Haute, Indiana. Not a Jew for 70, 80 miles. And, my background's also Hispanic. So we're Spanish Jews. So I definitely didn't fit in anywhere. I was a minority within a minority. No friends. I had horrible anti-Semitic graffitis, etched into my locker with a knife.
Wow.
Yeah, I had people tape a swastika sign to my back when I wasn't looking. It was ridiculous. So it did happen.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Nice.
Some of it was anti-Semitic, some things because I was a nerd. But now we live in the age of nerd where I can tell a girl on a date, say, actually, I got to meet with the guys. Sunday we got Dungeons & Dragons. And that's like, oh, cool. Oh, all right.
I mean, that's just one of the things that we talk about on the show a lot is, where does, we try to figure out why people are so anti-Semitic and how does that affect, as you grow up. And I think it's interesting to know that you can fight against anti-Semitism physically, but also in several other languages. So that's good.
But also it's about exposing people to it. Look, here's the thing. It's about representation as well. One of the reasons I'm a huge Marvel Comics geek is because I saw in Marvel these Jewish heroes. And Stan Lee is my fellow Jew. I actually met him once in New York City. We spoke for like 4 hours. Amazing guy. I liked seeing that there were people like me there. And I have this organization where we prominently display Jewish symbols and Hebrew. I like being able to, if we're somewhere with friends and I'm the only Jew there, they know a little bit about the culture. I've said something. If more people know about us, if it's less mysterious, I just think through familiarity, you can also do away with some of the prejudice. I think some of the prejudice is based on ignorance. Mm-hmm. We seem cliquish. We seem closed off. We seem secretive. So I like to explain it to people. And that's one of the reasons why the classes that I taught at Temple Beth in Miami, there were so many non-Jews because it was basically, hey, you got a question? We got answers. What are those little strings coming out of your pants? How does that thing stay on your head? It's important that people ask these questions, and it's fine. Fine to ask. Why don't you believe in Jesus? What's the problem with Santa Claus? Those questions should be asked and should be addressed. Even the tough ones, I have people come up to me as if I were apparently the de facto ambassador plenipotentiary of Israel and say, hey, Steve, what's going on with Israel and Palestine? As if I'm qualified to answer that question. And, you got to get into it. I'm fine to do so.
We are representatives.
Well, that's good. We're lucky to have you as a member of the tribe. So we got to wrap up the interview, but we want to ask you a couple questions that we like to ask every guest. Do you have a favorite Jewish food?
Maybe burekas or maybe shakshuka.
I don't even know what either of those.
Hold on. Jewish holiday.
Hold on. I don't even know what either of those foods are.
It's like an Israeli breakfast, shakshuka.
Yeah, here's the thing. It depends. If you're Ashkenazi, I'm Sephardic. I'm Sephardic. Not that I don't appreciate the gefilte fish in the grain, but I don't know, man. Sephardic, it takes the cake when it comes to cuisine.
Do you have a favorite holiday, Jewish holiday?
Passover, because I love making charoset, and I love just catering, and I like making food for it.
Who's your favorite Jew?
Man, what an impossible question. I don't know, because as a Jewish nerd, was it Nimoy, Shatner, Stan Lee? I mean, you could go on and on about Jewish nerds that I admire. And then if you do that, then why don't you admire Herzl or Menachem Begin? If you do that, then why not? It's impossible to choose.
Okay, well, thanks for giving us a bunch. Steve Becerra, is there anything you want to plug?
The Academy. I am at AIKMO, that's AIKMO, American Israeli Krav Maga Organization. You can go to www.aikmo.com or aikmokravmaga.com, and we're doing classes around the country. We've even done classes abroad. We're working hard to keep people safe. We're here for everybody. We don't care who you are. If you want to stay safe, we feel that we can help you. And, just be good to each other through all this, These are tough times. Just be kind to one another.
Awesome, Steve. Thank you so much. It's been so awesome having you on the show. We hope you'll come back.
Such a pleasure. I'm a fan. Thank you so much for the opportunity, gentlemen.
Yes, thanks, Steve. Keep fighting the good fight.
Thank you, sir.
All right. I feel more equipped to defend myself already.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. Of course, these are hard, crazy times. We urge everybody to show their support for the African-American community, and hopefully we could stop the systematic racism that's been going on, not only in this country, but all across the world. Check out videos that are happening, do some research, do some reading, watch some movies, and let's not all fight with each other for these dumb reasons, but let's use this opportunity to come together.
For sure. And there's no better way to come together than to follow us on all sorts of social media platforms. American Jew Podcast at Gmail is where you can send us an email if you'd like. You can follow us on Instagram at American Jew Podcast. We're on Twitter at American Jew Pod. I'm on Instagram at Beatnik Nudnik.
I'm at Jonathan Randall on all social media. Every social media is at Jonathan Randall.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for listening. Let's get out there and spread some love.
Stay safe.
Perfect.